If you get your rocks wet, it gives a much better idea of what the rock is going to look like when it is polished.
Well, hello everyone, Dan Hurd with Dan Hurd Prospecting here. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, welcome. I hope to earn your subscription today. I am here at the Vernon Lapidary Association's workshop. Today I'm making cabochons, gemstones for jewelry, out of that ocean picture stone that everyone loves so much. I hope to teach some of you who would like to learn how to do it along the way. If not, you just get to see me working this beautiful stone. I am very new to cabochon making, so wish me luck, and I hope you enjoy. Now, if you haven't seen this gemstone I'm talking about, I have lots of videos of me at my claim collecting and hunting for this ocean picture stone gemstone. If you want to see those adventures, just check out my channel. Now, before I get started, a really quick tour of the shop. As I said, this is the Vernon Lapidary Association's workshop. It's a workshop for all the club members to come and do lapidary work. That's working with stones, cutting gemstones. We got saws all around. I think we have about a dozen of them. We have grinders in the back. I think there's probably another dozen grinders back there. We have all the polishing, all the grinding, all the saws, everything you could possibly want to work gemstones and rocks. This is great. People are always asking me for advice, and my biggest piece of advice, whether it's gold hunting, rock hunting, gem cutting, anything it might be, is to find a local club and get involved. Because I'm a member of the Vernon Lapidary Association, I get to use this shop, I get to meet all sorts of great people that have all sorts of advice and knowledge, and get to go to places that, you know, I might not have permission to go to otherwise. So, find a local lapidary club, placer club, some sort of rock hounding club, something. Get involved. It is the best piece of advice I can give you. Now let's get to working some of this stone and making some beautiful pieces of jewelry. Yeah. Now today's task is to take some of my ocean picture stone, slab it down, make flat plates, flat slabs out of it that I can go and cut different shapes out of and make into cabochons. Now, cabochons are those domed gemstones, not the faceted gemstones you might be used to, but the domed gemstones that are used in jewelry. So I'm gonna be taking some of my nice ocean picture stone, beautiful stuff, and making into jewelry pieces. The first step in making cabochons is to take your rough stone and slab it down into pieces, I'm going to say roughly 1/4 inch thick. It really depends on how thick you want your cabochon, how thick you make your slabs, but roughly 1/4 inch thick. And I'm not going to show that really, explain that in the video, because this video is about making cabochons, not about making slabs. So first thing you have to do when you're making yourself a cab is select yourself a nice slab. Now I'm going to cut my own slab today here out of this rock. I'm not going to take you through the whole process of slabbing a rock because that's not what this video is about, but I'll let you see it in action. That's going to be the cab right there. Beautiful piece. And just underneath 1/4 inch for what I'm doing today. Let's start with some definitions here. A cabochon is a domed gemstone. A gemstone that whatever shape it's been made into, the top is rounded over and domed, compared to a faceted gemstone where the top of the gem has all these little flat facets. And some rocks like opals and, yes, ocean picture stone work best if they are in cabochon domed shapes. Now, one little trick I should point out is that if you get your rocks wet, it gives a much better idea of what the rock is going to look like when it is polished.
It gives it the sheen, it brings out the color, and lets you just see what you're working with better. Even rough stones, even when you're working with rough stones, like from the outside, it might not look like much until you get it wet, and then you can start seeing the blues, the colors, the patterns. Now that I have the slabs cut, it's time for me to start taking a good look at them and figure out where I want to create the shapes for the cabochons. And another trick for photographing these rocks is the more light you have on the rock, the better the color is going to show up of what it would look like when it's polished. So if you're using a camera, put on a flash. Better yet, go outside into the sunlight. Now, having a good look at the stone, we have to start thinking about our shape. So you might be working with a pre-formed setting that the cabochon has to go into. You might be working from templates of set shapes. You might just go with a complete free-form shape, depending on the stone you have, that you're utilizing specific aspects of that stone. For mine today, I want to go simple for the first, how-to video on making cabochons. I'm going to go with a straight round cabochon that fits into that setting right there. And I really like that look of the shoreline, the rocks on the beach, the water, and the sky in the distance. So I'm going to use this section of rock in that setting. Now there are different ways of drawing on the stone when you're drawing on the stone. You can use waterproof pens and whatnot, but we here tend to use sharpened pieces of aluminum. We scratch or scribe the shape and size onto the stone, and it leaves a little line of aluminum behind, and you can follow that and it doesn't get washed off by the water. Really check out the stone and plan where you're going to draw that shape, because we want to try to avoid things like this pocket here. I don't want that in my cabochon, so I'm going to start my drawing right beside it so I can cut that out. Now I'm sure someone out there is yelling at me right now saying if I'm scribing to the outside of the setting, it's going to be too big. Well, it's too big on purpose. I want the initial cutout of this to be a little bit oversized so that I can actually grind it down to the right size and get a perfect shape on the grinders rather than cutting with a saw, trying to get a perfect shape with a saw, because you will not be accurate. Now on to the water trim saw. If you're not familiar with lapidary tools, these blades or grinding stones or anything used for working stone have diamonds on their edge. Diamonds are harder than the rock, so it can cut the rock. This is a diamond blade. It's a water saw, so it's got water to lubricate and cool things, and it splatters a bit. Let's cut. Now on the saw, you don't have to get perfectly to your line. The grinders will get down the rest of the way and get it fitting into the setting perfectly. Now, just like the diamond saw that's cooled with water, our grinders are diamond grinding stones. You can actually see the sparkly diamonds on the surface, cooled with water. We'll turn the water on here, water comes down it and cools and lubricates it and keeps it from wearing out from the stone. We're gonna grind this down on our 100 grit diamond stone. Alright, there you have it. I've got the rough shape made. It won't fit in the setting yet. It's still too big for the setting, but I have lots of grinding to do still. So right now, it's ready to go for grinding. And you can see here, I've already got a few rough shapes ready to go to start doing some grinding and shaping. That's the one I just made. And I think I'm going to do one more rough shape on this one here. I really, really love the cloud bank over top of the water like this. I think that's going to make a nice one. I think I'm going to use a domed triangular look right there. There we go. I like that one. Nice water, clouds on the water, sky above, with just the right amount of beach in front. Go. We have some rough shapes to work with and start making them in to finish cabochons. One other thing I should point out is you don't always need a perfect slab to make a cabochon. This is actually the outside cut. This backside is all rough, the rough stone on the outside. but I can definitely get a thick enough piece out of that that I can make a full cabochon out of an outside cut, no problem. The back will be flat, and then we will grind the dome on the rough side. I'm going to start with this guy here, just because he is the biggest and thickest piece I have, and he's going to be the easiest one to show you how we start the grind. Now there are a few decisions to make when you're starting your grind here. You have to decide if you want to leave any of the flat side behind. You sometimes want to do that if you're setting it into a deep setting. You also want to decide if you wanted a nice sharp bend with a fairly flat top, or if you want your dome to be a gradual one up and over the whole thing. A little bit of experience here will tell you what's going to look best per piece. For this one, I'm going to do a nice average one. I'm going to leave just a little bit of a flat on the edge, and then a nice consistent dome over top of the whole stone. Now the first trick here is we're going to grind about a 45-degree angle about halfway down the edge, and then up the equivalent amount on the top. We're going to take the corner off to start with, all the way around nice and evenly. I'm just going to do that on the stone by holding a 45-degree angle and grinding in just a little bit, rotating it all the way around. So you can see I've just ground a flat all the way around, nice and evenly, down about halfway down that side. All the way around, trying to keep that flat shelf, flat edge even. Now we want to do the same thing again, taking the bottom edge, the bottom sort of point, ridge, grinding it about halfway, and the top ridge and grinding it about halfway as well, changing the angle on each one. We're cutting the difference in two, so breaking that corner off, then breaking that corner off, still using the coarse grinding stone. Now there's still a fairly significant flat spot on top. We will deal with that later, but right now what we have is we have our rough shape done nicely on the rough, coarse stone. For further shaping of this, we're going to go down to a finer grit so that we are not too aggressive and start taking away more than we want to. I do notice that I've done a little bad job of forming this top little point right here, so I'm going to adjust that before I go on. And now I'm going to do the same on the round one I made. I'm still too big, but only just too big. I'm going to leave it there because the finer and finer grits of grinding still take some off the overall circumference, and I don't want it to end up being too small. I can always adjust at the very end to make it fit perfectly. I can always adjust it smaller at the very end to make it fit perfectly. I can't make it any bigger. Now for this one, because it's such a flat, low dome stone, I didn't do a 45-degree angle grind on the edge. I did more of about a 30-degree angle grind so that I could actually start moving out over top of that dome more and make it a nice gradual easing dome over the top. If I went at 45 for this flat stone, it would have made it a very sharp edge with a big flat top still, and that's not what I wanted. Time to go knock off the top corner and a little bit of that corner a bit more on the coarse stone. And there we go. The coarse grind is done on the three that I want to get done tonight. Now to move to a finer grit. So we have different grits. We have 80, 100, 150, 240, 280, well, we got 3, 5, 6. We've got all sorts of 100, like lots of grits. but we use different ones for different stones. In my case, I start with the 100, I move to the 150, and then I go up to the sandpaper discs, the 320 and 500. And I try to avoid as much as I can right on the surface with the heavier grindstones so I don't scratch up the very, very top surface. The sanding ones, the finer grits, do a better job of that. I'm going on to the 150 right now to start just smoothing over the sharp edges left by the last grinder and shaping it to its final shape before I start the sanding and buffing process. Here we go. So they're all ground now on the medium grit, 150 grit grinder, but we've definitely found with Ocean Picture Stone that from the medium grit, the 150 grit grinder, it's best to go to the 300 grit sandpaper and then just work it a little longer on the sandpaper and go up from there. Skip the next grit of grinder because it just leaves marks in it. So here we go, on to the sanding drum, and then on to the 500 grit. And then onto the 600 wheel. So as you can probably tell, I just keep getting finer and finer grit. From the 300 to the 500 to the 600. My next one is the 1200. The 1200 is just over here. 1200. And then we go to the 3000. Just keep getting finer and finer and finer. Well, there we are. The final polish. It's a beaut. So these two are just going to have glue-on bails attached. Bails are the hoops that the chain goes through for pendants. This guy is going to get mounted into that setting I had, and then those are 3 finished pieces ready for sale. Or to give to my wife. Still have a few more that I can shape and do, but tonight I just wanted to get those 3 done on camera so you can see the process. Oops, one of the grinders was splashing me and I didn't realize it until too late. I'm all wet. Usually I wear an apron. Oops. Well, there we go. We have 3 cabochons polished down to the 3000 grit grinder sandpaper. 3000 grit sandpaper, which is the final step for some people at 3000. Some people like taking it to the cerium oxide. The cerium oxide is actually just a fabric or leather disc that you put this goop on. This goop, the cerium oxide, is even finer than 3000 grit. I don't know what the grit is. If I can find it out, I'll put it on the screen here for you. But even finer than 3000 grit and makes an even brighter, shinier polish. Now, one thing I didn't mention was anything about dopping. Now, that's gluing the stone to the end of a stick to make it easier to hold and polish. I was using fairly large stones today, so I could just hold them by hand. But for smaller stones, there's a way to glue them onto the end of a stick so you can hold them while you polish them. If you want to learn more about dopping, Me Miner did a great little video on it. I'll leave a link in the description for you. Now, I'm just learning how to make cabochons. I am no expert. I am a beginner and novice. I have made less than 10 of them, actually, and I made 3 of them tonight. There are people out there that are far better at making these than I am. In fact, I'm going to leave a picture right here from the King's Gems Lapidary. He is one of the best lapidary artists I've seen making cabochons.
especially with ocean picture stone. I know a lot of people out there know a lot more about this topic than I do, and there are probably a lot of people wanting to tell me that I'm doing things wrong, or I should have done this, or you left out that. This was just a little bit of a beginner's guide teaching you guys how I was taught to make these things. Very simple, very easy, very beginners. There's all sorts of tricks and tips and everything. And again, if you get involved with a lapidary club, there will be experts in that club that will be happy to teach you those tips and tricks and shortcuts and ways to make your cabochons far better than mine. This last year, I was able to acquire the claim, the mineral claim for this ocean picture stone. And we have discovered some amazing specimens, some amazing dig sites on this claim. And I now sell this ocean picture stone on my website. If you're interested in getting some for yourself and trying out this cabochon making, or you are already an expert, I do sell my ocean picture stone on my website, www.danhurdprospecting.com. Go check it out. And if you'd like to watch my adventures in discovering and harvesting and searching for this stone, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, where I have many, many videos from the ocean picture stone claim and how to work it. I sure hope you all enjoyed watching me fumble through making cabochons, and hopefully, if you needed to, you learned a little bit along the way. Before I sign off, I have to say a great big thanks to my patrons out there. Because of the support of my patrons, I get to make these weekly episodes of Dan Hurd Prospecting. If you'd like to learn more about supporting my channel, head off to patreon.com/Dan Hurd. I hope everyone's having an amazing day, night, morning, whatever it might be for you right now. And until the next video, everyone, bye.